Adam Adama. I live in California and finally came around to the idea of voting for Biden to help the national popular vote. That is until he's out there knocking socialism and Dem leadership's failure on SCOTUS. I'm done with Biden and the Dems. I can see him winning in 2020 only to be a weak president that gets nothing done but austerity. Dems, wake up. Trump is the start of a new political era, not a blip on the radar. I don't trust them to protect me and my family. I don't know how else to tell them. So let me just get this clear. You had come around to the idea of voting for Biden, and then he said something you didn't like. May hurt your feelings. And then all of a sudden, Trump is the start of a new political era.
You should have a segment called Debates from Inside the Cell.
I mean, honestly, this is how it happens, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but this is how it happens. I hate to bring this up, but you look in history for examples of societies completely going off the rails. And you just say how? It's just impossible to imagine. But this is what it is, right? A Supreme Court justice makes a sort of maybe selfish calculation 8 years ago. Yeah. 8 years ago. And just misses it by 2 or 3 months. And, a court in Michigan decides that these ballots aren't going to go out. And they managed to get in Louis DeJoy and to slow down the mail. And, if they had said there's a 3-day extension as opposed to a 2-day extension or something like this, like all of these things. And then you reach a point, and I don't think it's like a boil. I think it's like a cliff. You reach a point where it's not just that the heat is rising in a certain way. I do think it's a spike or a cliff. And then it's not a slippery slope. It is a cliff. And I'm convinced that's how it works. I'm not convinced that's what's going to happen, but I can say this. This is a necessary step along that way. We are fulfilling different steps. And I mean, I want people just to sort of imagine Donald Trump winning, the Supreme Court becoming then 7-2. More than likely, Breyer's not going to make it. At the very least, Thomas and maybe Alito, you're talking generations. You're going to see the inability, as if it's relevant, but of the EPA, of the FDA, of all the regulatory agencies from actually making regulations. They're all going to get rolled back from a judicial standpoint because we're going to head into a new Lochner era. You're going to see further diminution of people's right to vote. You're going to see, it's just going to get worse and worse. And the idea of any policies coming out of there, I don't know, where is the you contemplate, I don't know, these oligarchies in Latin America. Where is the road? So what do we do, says Dama. What do we do? I voted for Dems every time, and here we are. I'm yelling into the wind. Well, I get that.
Different time.
I get that. But
I think what you said was...
Let me put it this way. I'm trying to lose 5 pounds. I try and cut out sweets. That doesn't work. I try and do this. I try and jog and this and that. I can tell you what is not going to work. Eating cake. Eating ice cream. It is the case. I don't know. It's just sort of, it does not follow that I have been voting for Democrats every time, and I don't know how many times that is, that because we've gotten to this point because I've been voting Dems, that therefore, if I don't vote for Dems, something different, something better will happen, does not logically follow. You need to have the capacity to reason beyond like what an animal, just like literally an animal would, right? Like there has got to be nuance here. And go ahead.
What you said, Sam, I think it's so smart. It's like death by 1,000 cuts, and then there's just like you get to the bone, and then like the arm just breaks off unless you bandage it quickly. And the bandage is something where we all, like, there's certain tools along this path that are equipped for different moments. So we, as a collective, only have a certain set of tools because we don't have all the money, we don't have all the power. And those tools only work when we work together. And so the primary is, yes, it's controlled by the Democrats, but there are a couple of tools in that primary in which we could have won if we worked as a collective, if we were focused on the right issues, if, we had the right strategy, whatever it is. And unfortunately, we didn't win. And yes, we have voted Democrat, my entire lifetime. But every single time in the primary, we've gotten closer, especially the last, 2 cycles, to taking over the party, which dictates this general election, as we know really, really well. But that's a set of tools you use at that time, and there's a different set of tools you do at this time. It's just it's bonkers to me. I mean, it really is bonkers, as you said. It's a very simplistic, selfish approach to say at this moment you're going to sit on the sidelines when it's not coming. We're off the cliff. They're rounding people up off the streets. They're shooting down black people because they want to make a point now on camera. I passed by an NRA shooting range in New Mexico in which white supremacists are organizing their little militias. This is what's happening right now.
This is a funny comment. He's responded now. I think it's a guy. But Dems have normalized the entire Trump presidency. I am saying they are part of the problem and not the solution. I got news for you. When you decide that I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden, you're normalizing the Trump presidency. You're the one who is saying that as much, because I got news for you. The biggest act I am doing to not normalize the Trump presidency is the idea that I am I'm going to, I think at this point, vote for Joe Biden in New York State is maybe the most extreme indication that I am saying that Trump is abnormal that I have said in 4 years. The idea, like I would have nowhere along this trajectory would I have contemplated that I would vote for Joe Biden or, someone like Joe Biden in New York State, where I know he's going to win. But I am so desperate to make sure that Donald Trump is not president. And look, this was completely predictable 4 years ago. Completely predictable. So desperate. I mean, I used to tell the story. I know exactly where I was when Bill Clinton was elected. I was in Cobb's Comedy Club. I was shadowing Marin around because I was sort of lost in my life. And we were there as the results came in. And everybody was excited. And I was just like, ugh. I mean, I get it. Breathe a sigh of relief because the Reagan era is over. But really, Bill Clinton, you're excited about this? But that was when I began to realize, like, this is the overriding sentiment that will happen. And it happened after George Bush. And I knew it would happen after Donald Trump if we are lucky enough to be over with Donald Trump. And I understand it because we are at a point where it's like, you want to talk about normalizing Donald Trump? I don't care that Chuck Schumer is, inept. I don't care that Nancy Pelosi is inept and in some respects, I think, corrupt in a small c way, right? Her perspective is a function of the milieu in which she lives. The point is that I have a responsibility to, I feel one to society. I feel one to my kids. Like, I'm going to do everything I can without being able to change Chuck Schumer right now with a magic wand or change Nancy Pelosi with a magic wand to prevent this from going further. And if I want to promote policies that are far to the left of where Chuck Schumer is or Nancy Pelosi is or the Republicans are or anybody else is, this is a necessary step. We need to stop Donald Trump before you take the next step. I mean, this is just physics. I cannot get to the end of the race or down the road without taking these steps in between. And these steps are in between. There is no other. It doesn't look. The theory that Donald Trump would bring about some type of revolution has been shown to be a failure. Talk about Democrats not learning their lessons. Well, if you believe that Donald Trump was going to bring about some type of revolution, I got news for you. We are 200 federal judges later.
That's right.
We are trillions of dollars of wealthy tax cuts later. We are at diminished a regulatory state. We are at diminished voting rights. We are diminished in every single way later. And there's no revolution. We got Joe Biden. Yeah. So lesson, who's not learning the lesson?
Your analogy, you're running in a race and you got to get past certain points. Well, we're at the point where they're about to chop off our legs. So if we want to get to the finish line, it's either Biden just slows us down a little bit or our legs are chopped off and we never get to the finish line. I'm sorry. It's bonkers to me. I know it's not clickbaity. If I can just take one moment, you guys have to understand some of the messages out there that are being pushed to stay out are not always with the right motivations. Sometimes it's personal. Sometimes there's outside forces that are influencing these people. But you have to keep in mind where we are in this moment in history. Meditate on it. Because this is such a critical moment that if you live in any of these potential swing states, whether it's the Sun Belt or the Rust Belt, and you are seriously considering sending a message to the Democratic Party, the message to be sent to the Democratic Party was 4 months ago. And if you really want to send a message, get Joe Biden in office and start protesting him from day one. Yep. Because they actually have to respond. You want to send a message to Mark Kelly, who I really don't love, but needs to be in the office, or Schumer, or frankly, even the Democratic Party in New York State, which is a whole other conversation. You got to get in there because they're just going to steamroll you if you're just sitting on the sidelines until a week before the election.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like and here's the reality is that like the cohort that we are talking to now is really, I think, fundamentally not going to be how they vote or not vote is not I suspect, although, who knows, is not going to necessarily determine the outcome of the election. However, I would say that, like, look, it is incumbent upon you to do what you can do to get Joe Biden elected. And if you cannot donate to the campaign, work for the campaign, whatever it is, I get that. It is, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, but you can go find a candidate that you do like, yes, who is running, and help them. I don't know, find out who it is.
Senate races. I mean, those critical Senate races, they need the support. They need those phone calls. Absolutely.
And you find a senator you like, because every vote that you drive out for that Senate candidate or that House candidate, the odds of that person voting for Joe Biden are greater than 50-50. Yeah. If you can get them to vote for that progressive candidate that you want, the odds of them voting for Joe Biden is 50-50. And if you can get them out there to vote, you are going to be helping stop Donald Trump. And that is, like, I understand, do at least that. I don't know if like, and if maybe it's a progressive prosecutor, maybe it's, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Drive the vote out. Even if you think they're going to win, drive a couple extra votes out them for, And
if you live in New York and you want to help out, focus on those swing states where they don't have, strong progressive movements and strong chapters of DSA. Really think about strategically using your energy to target those who could influence, the Supreme. Well, we're past that.
And we're gonna have in the next week. We're gonna have Aaron Kleinman on, who's gonna talk about state races.
Yeah,
not even federal races. And if you drive out votes in a couple of state Senate races, you can change legislatures.
Absolutely.
And that will fundamentally alter the trajectory of Congress and down the road. And if you're able to do that, and you could drive out 100 votes in 2 different Senate districts.
Redistricting is huge.
Yes, of course.
You want to fight gerrymandering?
There you go. At this point. So you can take this urgency, you can ignore Joe Biden, and you can put effort into this, and you can bring about positive.
But important. So going back to the point about there are forces out there really focused too much on taking out Joe Biden rather than all these other conversations. That's what Trump wants. They're trying to divide us and take us off of the important issues. And what Sam is saying, instead of using your limited energy in attacking Joe Biden because you're mad at him, which we are too, I definitely am, it's using it towards these other races. It's using that energy and focusing on other things, because I think there's just too much energy, even folks that we know aren't going to vote for Joe Biden or sit on the sidelines or whatever. The energy is out there, and it's reducing the excitement towards the state races, which are dependent on a strong Democratic ticket. I personally know some friends who are Bernie folks who are in tight races and are depending on Joe Biden's turnout to win.
Yep.
And they don't like him.
Yep.